Welcome to the Built to Win podcast, a show about entrepreneurs, their processes, their stories, how they built their dreams into reality. Today, I have the founder of LA Weekly, a good mentor, friend, and a man who is working to change the world through social emotional learning, my friend, Jay Levin.
Hey, man.
Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, and good to see you.
Yes, sir. You as well. You as well. So basically, when we typically start, we start from the beginning. I know the path of where you got to, but I want the listeners, the watchers, to understand, where did LA Weekly go? How did it become? And where did Jay Levin start? So where are you from?
So I'm from New York. I grew up in Upper Manhattan, Washington Heights, and then we moved to an area called Flushing, in Queens. My father, when I was born, was a tool and die maker, so he was a working man. My mother was a home-based mother. We moved to Flushing when he got into a little bit more money, and he went into working in the used car business. So I got my first car at 16 right off his lot.
Nice.
And then we moved out to Long Island. I went to school and college in Long Island for 1 year, and I came back into Queens. I got married very young, 19. We got pregnant, we got married. And I really wanted to be a writer, but being married meant I needed to have a living.
Yes.
So my living was going to, what I really wanted to do was be a journalist. And I used to read all the local papers. And there was a fellow named Murray Kempton, who was one of the most brilliant writers in American history.
Wow.
And he was had a column in a daily newspaper. And I thought, that's really a great aspiration, right? If I'm going to be a writer, get out in the world. Let me be that. I had a cousin who worked for the New York Post at that time, and I kept asking him, "Can you get me a job when I graduate? I don't want to go into PR, and I got the family to support." And he said he kept coming back. He couldn't do it. By a fate of God, I ended up at the New York Post.
There you go.
I went into a building, found an office, and of all the people they could have hired who were looking for an editorial clerk, they hired me.
Yes.
And there I was at the New York Post, exactly where I wanted to be. And after a while, I got a tryout, and I became a young star there very quickly.
Okay.
So I got an opportunity to cover a lot of issues that I wanted to cover. Basically from the start, I was what's known as an alternative journalist, even though I was working for a daily newspaper. So an alternative journalist is someone who looks at the world and says, I want to cover those stories that are going to make the most difference in the world, right? And so one of the areas I decided to cover was, I was interested in what would make positive change from the inside out, because in my family there was always fighting and arguing and stuff like that. I always thought there's got to be a difference in the world, So I got interested in modern therapy techniques being used in drug treatment, and I had already written a series that made me a star for them. And so I said, I want to do this next. And they said, okay, go for it. So I spent a bunch of time for several months sitting in group therapy sessions, sitting in even some individual sessions, and watching people change dramatically, actually. Because what they were experiencing is a different way to think about their problems. And then, since these were pretty sophisticated sessions I was going to, they're being taught how to deal with their inner lives differently, deal with their relational lives differently. And over time, I saw people change and come out of their medicated pain into a different sensibility. So that stuck with me. And in my journalism career, I thought what it confirmed for me was two major things, right, that I already suspected. One is that almost all human suffering, if self-inflicted, inflicted on others, right up to wars and nuclear wars, come from a lack of skills to know how to deal with what life throws at us, and that actually we're badly trained to deal with life's conflicts, right? And ultimately, I became an expert on the child development process of that. The other thing I learned was that if the world is an effect of all the ways we're trained, if we train differently, you're going to get a different world. So the world's an effect.
Yeah.
So let's focus on how you can train differently.
What is the cause?
What's
Yeah.
the cause? How can you learn to be in a different kind of place differently?
I like it.
Yeah. So when I started the weekly, we became the first urban weekly in the country to cover the human development movement, among all the other things we were doing, which is a lot. And then we became, and then some years later, I actually took workshops all the time for myself
And workshops in regards to what?
Workshops in some processes of self-management, processes of healthy relationships, things like that.
Okay.
And I actually became an expert in this. I took a master's degree program in spiritual psychology after I had needed a break from running media. I had started a TV network and didn't work out. Part of my crash was why did I let myself burn out?
Yeah, there you go.
Getting this going. So
spiritual psychology. And we have fast forwarded a lot, but I want to touch on that.
Sure.
What that sounds heavy, but I don't know if it is. What is the crux of spiritual psychology?
Spiritual psychology is a very simple premise. You weren't created to be in this kind of place, right? Mm-hmm. You were created to be, a loving, learning, co-created, collaborating human being.
Okay.
But the process of child development over the years, right, gets you into a place where that goes away.
Yeah.
You develop am I good enough, bad enough, who's good, who's bad, a judgmental mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And then you develop coping mechanisms to deal with it rather than skills. You get into fights, or you avoid, or you try to manipulate and lie, or you try to control something, or you try to enable something. You're an addict.
Yes.
All these coping mechanisms that people learn through life. So I actually found that I was very good at it. So next thing I knew, I was coaching a bunch of people part-time. And I developed workshops around it. But I didn't do it too long, but the workshops kept going for some years. Mm-hmm. And I went back into, after a couple of years, into creating media projects or running other media projects.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to rewind us back a little because you were in New York. Uh-huh. You're in school in Long Island. Mm-hmm. Then you were at the Post. Mm-hmm. And then how long were we at the Post? And then where do we go from the Post?
So I was at the Post for, I think, 8 to 10 years, something like that.
Okay.
After that, I felt I had outgrown it, right?
Okay.
This is how the weekly got started. And I went out to write to freelance. I went to Ibiza for a year to get a break, almost a year.
You went to Ibiza, okay.
And then I came back and I was freelancing a lot because I wanted to be able to write exactly what I want to write about, but on a more cosmic dimension and larger dimension, the New York more sophisticated dimension that I couldn't even at the Post.
Yes.
Right, and the Post was changing and a lot of things were going on. So, and then I had an idea for a magazine, national magazine. I wrote up a treatment on it and thought it's going to go nowhere because I don't know any rich people.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm going to make this story very fast because there's other things to talk about. But in the course of that, the treatment ended up being because I knew a fellow who had gone to work for Larry Flint. Mm-hmm. Right, so the treatment ended up going to Larry Flint, right?
Okay.
And then the next thing that happened is Larry Flint calls me up and says, I want to talk to you about funding this magazine. He was trying to get away from porn.
Yes.
So we met. He gave me a bunch of money to develop out the idea. I developed it out. Then he said, let's get going with this. We got together again and he said, let's get going with this. He had a nice deal on the table for me. I would have been highly paid and had a lot of stock.
Yes.
Huge amount of stock. It was really a split. But the one thing we couldn't agree on was who would have final editorial control.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, somebody could walk up to you, tell you Marilyn Monroe's alive, which has already happened, and you're going to believe it, right? And you don't have an instincts for great journalism.
Yes.
And I can't risk my young career, right, to let you have final editorial control, right? And he said, I can't let you have this. This has got to be a vehicle for me because we want to do great stuff in the world.
Yes.
But
Yes.
he said I have to have fun. So we parted friendly. Said I can't do it. He says I can't do it. We shook hands. Right, went away. 6 months later, he calls me up and said, I just bought the LA Free Press, which was the predecessor to the LA Weekly, and I want you to come out and run it for me. And he said, and if you do it and give me a couple of years to it, we'll do the you'll have full editorial control, not me, and in a year or two, just get that going, and I'll put it in writing. We'll do the magazine, the national magazine, and you'll have final editorial control. But I need you now. So I said, okay, and I went. And I put together this incredible team of people on his dime, all of whom ended up at the LA Weekly. Redesigned the publication, put it out on the streets. We were almost, it was hot from only the second week we put it out. This was the revised LA Free Press, which has been a meaningful thing in the 60s and had really just gone down the tubes.
Yeah.
It had sex ads in the back, all kinds of stuff. So I threw those out. 10 weeks later, he got shot.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
He was shot. The public story was that he was shot and crippled for life by some,
Crazy
right-wing Christian in the South. He believed it was a setup from the mafia because the mafia controlled distribution in the country and the magazine distribution. And he had started his own magazine distribution company, so he's always suspicious about that. Anyway, he got shot. He was out of it for a couple of years, right? It was years later. He took some years later. The day after he got shot, the company shut down the LA Weekly. It was his vision. It was already draining money, and they were in trouble financially, which I suspected because the payroll was always late. And so I said to the team, we started something great. We'll redesign it. Let's start it all. We'll start our own paper. We'll all have stock in it, and I'll go raise some money if you stick around town. It took me 6 months. It took me 9 months to get the money together. But we all stuck around. We all managed to stay around. The people who became the stars of the LA Weekly, and we started it, and it was an overnight success. And then we grew it to be, over the years, it grew to be 230 pages, 70% advertising. We changed LA nonstop. We were called people like, just felt it was like the essence of the town. The most part, not only the journalism as well as the entertainment guide. So that was great. It was a big win. And the bottom line for me was I took the vision of it when the cable industry announced it was going to do it. I'd already run it for a bunch of years. I took the concept of what an alternative paper could be, and how popular it could be, and how much change it could make. I mean, we even got the smog cleaned up in California with our journalism. So our investigative reporting. So we then started the weekly. When I left the weekly, I turned it over to some other people, and I started a TV network called Planet Central TV, which had a lot of the same stuff, but it didn't work out because
What was the premise of Planet Central?
the Planet Central TV was the urban audience, and the urban audience that would welcome ideas of positive change in the world, and would welcome the idea of the kind of journalism that would really
Shift
you could
the thought
trust.
process.
It wasn't corporate. You could trust it. You trusted the voices writing it or speaking it. And we had a whole different way. We created a whole different way of presenting to the audience on a regular basis, including the news. We would have revolutionized news.
Well, let's get in that. So, if you think about it, was it more based upon news, or was it based upon selling advertising? Because I think that's kind of where we are right now.
Well, we figured we would take advertising, but we were going to be kind of very restrictive about the kind of advertising we were going to take. We thought we'd get high subscription fees because the cable operators at that stage, this is the mid '90s, cable operators had a huge amount of trouble getting young audiences to watch television.
Yeah.
50 channels and nothing to watch, the Bruce Springsteen storm. Right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't relevant, and they needed that audience badly.
Yes.
So because of that, every cable operator said, as soon as we have the channel space, I had two partners who had started TV net, one who started the entertainment network, one who started the Lifetime network, the women's network. So they were the front people with knowledge of the cable industry. So we were going to be winners. In the surveys that they relied on, the industry relied on for public demand. We ran neck and neck with the History Channel and way ahead of all the rest in terms of America's Most Wanted channel.
Wow.
So they liked our concept, they liked our management, they thought we were going to do it, but they didn't roll out the channel space. And for many years, and the big money people said, we're definitely going to fund you, but not until we know, in the big ways, the bigger money, not in the ways that, not until we trust the cable industry to really do the digital, which they were smart about because they didn't do the digital for many years.
Yeah.
That got it all, a bunch of, that wasn't just me, a lot of startup companies came into the TV network business. Yeah.
Okay. So with that, you got to experience the fact that you saw in your mind something that you loved and you wanted to do. You said, I want to be in journalism. I want to be in papers. I'm going to figure out how to do this after you'd gone 8-10 years learning through someone else, started your own, found success early, I think. I think you would call that an early success. And then you found failure. So with that failure, then what was it that made you say, okay, I'm still going to keep going?
Well, that's a good question. I recognized that I'd made a lot of mistakes, and I was in a lot of pain, but it was self-inflicted, right? I lost a great relationship in that period too, because I got so obsessed. So I said, I got to take a break, take a deeper look at myself. What in my own dynamic would drive me to this extent? And so that's when a friend of mine recommended I take that master's degree course in spiritual psychology, where basically you're learning about the masters, right? And you're learning their techniques in therapy, and you're practicing them with it in the groups. So I knew conceptually about the masters, but I had never practiced the techniques. And in practicing them, I found that I was really good at it.
Okay.
Reasonably psychic, so I could read where people were coming from and what they needed to hear next. So that helps. So people from the school asked if they could come home and work with me,
Yes.
right? And I said, yeah, it was a goof, you know. And it took, I think, in about over a year. Within a year, I had like 24 clients, regular clients, and I did it for another very short period. But then I banked it down, and because I wanted to get back into media, and a friend of mine came along and said, "Let's start." This cable was starting to explode, and a friend of mine said, "I want you to partner with me. We want to create a cable, not a cable, an internet website called, basically it would be the self-help channel, right?
Ah, okay.
Where we would focus on human development issues. And he would handle this part, I would handle this part. So we started rolling that out. We put together a good proposal, got some money, and we were about to close $25 million when the crash of 2001 happened.
Oh,
And next thing we knew, everybody walked out the door.
yeah.
We were 1 week away from signing the final documents, and that crashed.
Wow.
So I went back into doing other stuff, continuing the coaching and looking at other projects. So overall, I also started, I already at the Weekly, had launched 2 nonprofits. One dealt with hunger and poverty in LA County and areas not covered.
Yep.
Another dealt with community development, working with the grassroots organizations, community development issues. I'm sorry. The community development one I started after the 2000 crash
Yeah.
one. I started one about community development issues to raise the economic basis of LA. It was called Remaking LA. And I started one to deal with the influx of immigrants, which we still see coming from Central America. And the idea was, why are they coming? And the answer was the vicious oligarchic control. So people were coming here like torture. An organization got started here just because there were so many torture victims coming in here from El Salvador and Guatemala. So I thought, let's do something with some of the people I knew about getting our government behind changing its policies in Central America, because we're feeling it here in LA, and it's painful to see how many people are coming in with that kind of pain, suffering, desperation. So we did that, and so after that, I've run 6 companies, media companies, and I've started 6 nonprofits. The last 2 are the ones that you know about because you're engaged with us. The first one is called Equip Our Kids, which is, after all the years as a journalist, knowing about social movements, knowing about inside behaviors of social movements, understanding what the fulcrum of change needed to be to make the country, why not economic prosperity for many more people? We don't have to. Doesn't have to be so divided. We've got all the resources. We don't have the mindset to stop the slums and stop the homelessness. Can't be that. So I worked in that field, and worked also. What I realized that, and from the human development side of my training, is a lack of skills, and it's carried out right up to the fact we have nuclear weapons. We are not trained to be in collaborative sense of how to be in the world together. So we inflict pain on ourselves. The addiction rate in the country is enormous. it's medicating pain you don't otherwise know how to deal with. The crime, violence rate in the country is way beyond what it should be, right? The amount of collective action around wars and nonstop wars on a universal level is, okay, we solve our problems through violence. Right? Why? Because we don't know how to solve them. We're not trained innately to solve them. How does it affect our schools? We got gangs in our schools. We got low graduation rates. We got everything. So, in my interest in human development, a friend of mine pointed out to me one day that there's this education. Her sister was on the board of a school up in Chatsworth. That she said had these social emotional learning programs for years, which I had barely heard of. And he said, you should visit the school and see what they're doing with these kids. And I did. And I saw these most amazing kids solving their conflicts, highly evolved, learning like that because their minds were present for learning rather than being, what did Joey do to me, or things like that, because Joey wasn't doing that anymore. And if Joey did it,
they didn't have to respond to what Joey did.
They didn't have to respond.
Yes. Right? Yeah.
So next thing that happened was I just thought, this is great. And I went to some other schools and saw the same thing. Really highly evolved kids. Some of the kids I thought were 10 years old. I thought, God, I put them in the White House today. And then I was bored being the publisher of a friend's, helping him out, being the publisher of a friend's environmental website. And I thought, this is not what's the most important thing in the world I could do? I actually got depressed. I didn't feel I was using my full sense of vision and talents. And I thought, well, what's going on with this movement and how big is it? And I already learned it was only in a very handful of schools.
Yeah.
At best, 5-10% of American schools. And I also learned that nobody I knew ever heard of it. I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you heard of it, social emotional learning, your brain immediately went dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I thought, what's the fix for that? I thought the fix of it is public awareness, right? And as a guy who had been very aware and covered a lot of social movements, and what's the level of grassroots organizing? There were already a couple of thousand program developers in the field, but they didn't even have a business association by which they could promote themselves. So the pie for them, the money pie for them, was very, very small.
Correct.
Very difficult for them. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start a nonprofit, and I'm going to do absolutely free pro bono, and make the public aware of the pro bono, right? So I started Equip Our Kids, and Equip Our Kids became the test ground for what media worked.
Yes.
And social emotional learning didn't work. Clickbait turned out to be ads to parents through Facebook, Google, you name it, that said, it's important to raise the emotional intelligence of your child. The emotional intelligence book was still people's minds. And make sure the school is supporting your desire for your children to have these life skills, all of which no parent can agree to if the kids have these life skills.
Yeah.
Because that's what this social emotional learning does. And then the idea was, but if you go to your schools, the educators will probably know if they know it at all as social emotional learning. And if they don't, say you got to go to this organization, this
to help get
center
it there.
Organization that has already vetted a lot of these programs and can help you learn how to bring them into your schools.
Yeah.
So, but we need the parents behind it. So in the most recent survey, if it was even 5% then, the most recent survey showed that parent awareness and buy-in was about 75% now.
Wow.
And we played a big role in that.
That's amazing.
And then a couple of years later, I found, I've been looking for what's happening on the grassroots level that we could do something about. And what I found was that there was these state alliances that brought together educators and program providers. And the first one is beside by a lawyer and grandfather who wanted this for his kids, named Mitch Lyons, back in Massachusetts. And he had successfully brought together program providers and the educators who knew about this movement. And they were really making a difference in the state by lobbying for getting other teachers involved, getting principals involved, getting districts to support it, and then getting the state student education department. Well, first they went to the legislature, which got the state education department to pay attention. So they created a movement. Massachusetts is not a big state.
Yep.
It's reasonably open to new enterprises in education. They pride themselves on model education. So they had created something that was really effective in Massachusetts. So I had them mentor me here, and I got a group of people together I had met from the education world in the first couple of years of Equip Our Kids, and I piped them in. There were 30 organizations in the room. 25 the organizations said, let's do this after they presented about what they were doing.
Yep.
So we started California Social Emotional Learning Alliance. And the California Social Emotional Learning, 4 years ago, I turned it over to, about almost 4 years ago. I turned it over, found an executive director because I couldn't run it, both organizations, and do a good job on both organizations. A woman named Amy Cranston, who was an expert in social emotional learning and had been running the Ventura County after-school programs, and a fantastic person. Also the sister of Bryan Cranston, the actor.
Okay.
And she'd written a book about social emotional learning. And since I turned it over to her with 600 members, she's going to have 3,500 members and really making a difference in the state. Got the governor to issue a proclamation in support of it. So it's moving forward in California nicely. She's got regional leaders going. Yeah. She's done a great job. So our focus now at Equip Our Kids is there's a cry that with COVID. What happened with COVID is the kids went crazy at home.
Yeah.
Real mental health crisis. Surgeon General declared a mental health crisis. So the Biden administration finally was the first administration that really stepped up behind this. And under the mental health category, they put a bunch of money in to accelerate when the kids going back to school, the adoption of social emotional learning. And the Surgeon General and the Education Secretary were way behind this because Surgeon General said, we don't have enough psychiatrists or therapists or counselors to go around. We really need to train the kids in their own self-management and also be able to get them they lost 2 years. What can we get them into their mindset where they can accelerate their learning?
Correct.
Right? Once we get them. So that the money started coming in. And so most recently, when COVID happened, we started we had been focused on parents going to the schools. When COVID happened, the schools weren't there. So we built an emotional health toolkit. We curated one from the best stuff out there for homes. And we started promoting that to parents. We've had hundreds of thousands of downloads of it. So now we're in the process of, we don't have programs, but we take the best, even from Sesame Street, things like that, and say, here's things you can do at home. With the new surge, a lot of principals have said to us, we need the parents to be in line with what we're teaching in schools.
Yep.
So we have a newsletter we started to do that, help they can parent the parents, and we're starting a streaming service. We're putting together the process of starting a streaming service that's paired with this material, so parents can turn it on, pick the category of what they need, and stream those things that would be helpful for them.
So with your streaming, I apologize. I just wanted to jump in really quickly. So with the streaming service, does that essentially give these parents the ability to allow or to learn these tools, because that's essentially
Exactly
what
right.
the
Yeah, just
what
like
it
the
is,
kid.
is giving the tools. And I think that SEL for me, until I met you, because I'll be honest, I didn't know what social emotional learning was. I
Welcome to
knew,
America, yeah.
yeah, I knew that it was very important to be able to cope with your emotions. As you obviously know, we've been working on some things, doing training with kids and training emotionally. Now we know this SEL, but training them to understand that where you start does not dictate your end, and the things that happen to you in life are those are part of your journey, but it does not dictate where your journey takes you. You internally dictate where you're going to go. So understanding that, is that really that kind of where you guys are going, where you're essentially giving people the tools to understand how to manage themselves on a day-to-day, the parents first, and then hopefully
Right.
that the parents can help the kids?
Yeah, so we don't have any programs ourselves, so we
Okay.
don't give the tools.
Okay.
Generally, we just say the tools are there, here they are, right? And use them.
Okay.
They're going to make a huge difference in your kid's life and your family's life, right? And they're ultimately going to make a huge difference in the workplaces, in society, and in the world. We are not a generation, and we don't foresee one that's going to like get the sensibility like, maybe we should take down the nuclear weapons pointed at our heads before there's an accident, or before some crazy person has total power and pulls the trigger, right? Because they don't care about life, and we flirt with that right now. So the question is, can we get a whole world of generation of young people who will not think in that terms and will say, this is crazy, why have this point ahead? We got these problems, we got these issues, but we already know how to solve the problems because we're doing it day in and day out. We're not in the mindset of me against you, we're in the mindset of what great things we can do together.
Yeah, I think collaboration, and this is just kind of my take on it, is not about collaboration is very necessary, but I think the first is for us as a collective to focus on elevating ourselves. I think,
Amen. For adults, you got to focus on elevating yourself.
yeah. I think
For sure. No question.
a lot of has been focused on how do I help this person? How do I change this thing?
Right.
We live in a capitalist society. I'm extremely happy that we do. We live in a democratic society. I'm very happy that we do. I was born Christian, and I'm very happy about that. But I don't feel like it is necessary for me to put what my programmed beliefs are on you or anyone else. I think whatever things that are in me, I'm supposed to maximize those things and supposed to be the best version of me. And so whatever person that gravitates towards me, that sees the good and says, hey man, I like what that thing is. How do I get a little piece of that? And I think the more we as a collective, that we focus internally as maximizing ourselves, Brian maximizing himself, Jay maximizing himself, and we will all kind of come together. And I think it helps with discourse, because I think a lot of times people...
No question about it.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, we're trained in certain... We have these impulses to like defend ourselves,
Yes.
to attack the other person, to find fault with them, to walk into a room and wonder like, what's my game here? Who can I take advantage of? Who's going to try to take advantage of me? But babies don't come in with that mindset.
Programming.
It's a program. It's a program that starts with hierarchical culture. In hierarchical cultures, the heavier the hierarchical culture, the more the guy at the top has control over everybody's life, right? The more it passes down, you got to behave and not show anything outside. And the parents then really control you and want to make sure you're just playing within the framing work of that game. That game has brought us to the verge of mass extinction. And, if it's not nukes, it could be ecocide, what we're doing to screw up the planet.
Yeah.
But look, we're in a time with it. Look at all the wars going on, the violence. Are we going to go to war with China over Taiwan and this and that? All the homelessness you see around LA, all of this stuff comes from that one mindset. I'm trained to make sure my ass and maybe your ass is protected, but I'm not in the mindset that I don't have to protect anything. We're going to collaborate. It's a mindset, and we have the skills to know how to deal with anything negative that comes up with us inside of us. So I see the social emotional learning movement as an historic event. I didn't create it. I didn't develop the programs. Child psychiatrists did. Child development experts did. They put together programs from the best of stuff out there, and with the realization that we can do better. We have the tools to do better, and now how do we get those tools out there to do better on the mass level, right? And let's start with our kids, because the kids are they're the least damaged. By the time you're an adult, you're already in patterns of behavior where you're reflexively coming from your coping mechanism, the meeting moment there's some tension in your life.
Yeah.
My big one was avoidance. My mother was so overwhelming, and the strap was there. And I thought, okay, watch what I say around her. Anybody. So I had to overcome that in my relational life. I had to learn to retrain myself around those things.
Yes.
And so adults can start retraining themselves. A good one I recommend is to find a course in nonviolent communication. Start with learning to be able to diffuse conflict, right? And feel confident you can diffuse it rather than go into reaction and fear, and then attack and defend. So, which accounts for 53% of accounts for most of the 53% of divorces.
Yeah.
So
I could agree.
So we want to train the kids. There's one study they did with kids who were 4 years old, and they had a couple of months of this in preschool. They had a control group, and they had a learning group. All the same kind of kids, some same kind of class backgrounds, et cetera, right? And they tracked them for 25 years. So the kids who had the training, this couple of months of training, they had the volume of healthy relationships, success in the world, good feelings about themselves, community engagement, the healthy stuff. The other group had the crime, the drug usage, the broken relationships, the self-abuse, you name it, on much higher percentages.
Yeah.
So, for me it was like, it's so obvious. I got lucky enough to learn about this, and I have lucky enough to have the skills to do something about it. But it's so obvious to me, if you really want to make a change in the world, you change the way people relate to the world, because the world's an effect. And right now I thought, so the movement's been growing. We're now up to 20, I think we're up at 27 state alliances.
Nice.
We helped seed some of them a few years ago, 4 years ago. The ones who existed, we got together, we created a national office run by the people from Massachusetts. And we get together once a month. It's just one of the coalitions we're in. And share best practices and help others, and then look to get others going. The most recent one, which we did a little bit of help get some of the key seed players in, was Florida, which launched just 3 weeks ago. I attended the launch meeting, and it was great.
Yeah.
A lot of very smart, a lot of smart, really smart, caring people who understand that this stuff is not bullshit. That's a healer of bullshit.
Yes, exactly.
I'm allowed to use this language.
You are. This is a free, open forum.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's progress being made, and there's the second level of the progress is the schools have to learn to adopt it. It's not an overnight process, so there's a learning curve, and sometimes that's painful. And there's a small political attack from the hard right wing around this.
It's the far right. It's always the far right, far left.
Yeah,
It's just noise.
being told it's something it's not,
Yeah.
and making noise about it. But so that's we've been dealing with that as well.
So I have a question for you, as you spoke about it, because I'm going to. This is a show about entrepreneurship and the journey. I really want to tie it in because it's something that's very important, in my opinion. Is social emotional learning, is understanding how to modulate your emotions, how to operate from your higher self, and understanding what your higher self is, what your lower self is. And then again, I think a lot of these things come from ancient information that's been passed down on from what I call God, and some people don't like that. You can call it the universe, you can call it source, you can call it whatever you want to call it.
I'm happy with God. Yeah.
You can call it whatever you want to call it. But understanding that God has given us these tools and given us these books and texts and all of this information that at one point was not wildly available on how to master ourselves, on how to figure out how to get in touch with ourselves. So with that, then having the ability to understand our environment and to communicate with others.
Right.
And so I think the school is one thing, but what I have wanted to figure out is why isn't social emotional learning available outside of the schools? What's stopping us from setting things up where we're teaching kids in the communities about this? Because I think the more that it's available to the youth that are from neighborhoods like mine, again, that think that where they are at that moment is where they're going to be the rest of their lives, is understanding that no, it's not.
So this is a good point. So in a number of states, California, the after-school programs, like the After-School Network, California After-School Network, has been ahead of the schools themselves until the COVID stuff hit, in adopting social emotional learning practices in after-school programs. They're reasonably ahead. Now that, of course, it's catching up with all this other money. Boys and Girls Club of Los Angeles, actually, all the clubs here are under one management. They've been using this for time.
Okay.
The manager of the clubs actually made a video for us on our website. It's equipourkids.org for those of you out there. Equipourkids.org.
They'll show that. Yeah. They'll bring that up and let everyone see that.
They made a video about the effects of social emotional learning in the kids and why they're using it. I know a fellow on the national board of the programs, and he says that now it's universal across the country. At Boys and Girls Clubs, and they're supporting it from the top down. So a lot of after-school programs across the country are looking at it. We've been being in touch with a lot of cities now. We want to see what the cities were doing and how we could help the cities. So we've been reaching out to the 200 major cities and their youth development programs, orphan parks and recreations. And they're all saying, almost all of them are saying, yeah, we're really looking into this. Or we're adopting it, or we've got loads of people coming to us with program proposals. So this is good. This is very healthy. Yeah.
So and for me, I think the more and more, I have a friend, Mike, who has been big on attempting to help kids.
Oh, fantastic.
As a restaurateur, and he wants, his vision is to get kids and have them come and learn about the restaurant business, learn about how that works, but then also be able to take them into nature, which is another version, again, for me, these are my opinions, I don't put my opinions on anyone, of experiencing the world and seeing that this thing that we get to take part in, and going in places like Arkansas and seeing the fish and getting on a lake and fishing, and where again most of these kids from these neighborhoods, they don't get to experience things like this. And so the more you can, in my opinion, has always been, the more you can open a person's aperture, the more the higher they can dream. So
No
the more
question.
vision you see, the more things you're exposed to,
Amen.
the bigger your
The
dreams
bigger,
become.
yeah. So I love that. We a lot of our work has been focused on the more impoverished schools, the more racially brown and
Black and brown, yeah,
black and
yeah.
brown schools. So I know the field well, and as a person who's been an entrepreneur, we support. When we promote now life, we started the student movement. We're just organizing the student movement behind it, and we're working to starting to create a student advisory board now. And but in our talks, we've made it clear that a life skills club should have social emotional learning about it, but it should also have financial literacy.
Exactly.
It should also have entrepreneurial training for those who want it, and should have whatever the kids feel is elemental to real life, so that all these things are integrated. So in our purpose, we say we're going to provide you all this. Some years ago, I did a year of mentoring program at the Juvies here, actually the one in Malibu at that time. So I was dealing with a lot of gangbangers, and I gave them a menu of things that I could teach them, right? Overwhelmingly, they chose how the economy works and how to get into it.
Yes.
Overwhelmingly, they just wanted to know about how it worked.
I mean, it's a big thing and I hate to jump in there, but it's one of the things that I have attempted to educate people who ask me. I moved to LA from Chicago, and people are like, oh, how do you stop the crime? How do you do this, Brian? Well, like, first off, I'm not the guy that can stop things. But the second off is a lot of these kids that end up being, as you call it, gangbangers, that end up being drug dealers, that end up being stick-up kids. These are not planned choices. It's just no one gave them other options.
There's no options. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you present another option, and if you present a way that you show up to the world, then the world is going to receive you in a different way than they have in the past.
No, for sure. Yeah. The question is where we need more energy and more money to do that. And what we find is that when you put social emotional learning in a school, there's a school in South Central, had all the gang stuff, all the bank stuff. And the state gave them a grant some years ago to really do social emotional learning right. The year before, they had 263 discipline incidents, 273, and a bunch of the kids had gone to jail for it, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
2.5, 3 years into it, they were down to 19 incidences. The kids were the gangs were gone. The kids were relating to each other beautifully. We have a video of this on our website, and and then they could bring in these other programs where kids. Okay, now we can learn about financial literacy, and we can learn about how to make a living and what the economy really works like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then, once that was happening, more of the mentoring groups started showing up. They could bring in the mentoring groups and find the kids who were interested in being mentored by businessmen around town. Maybe Mike is doing that as well. Yeah,
exactly.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
One of our co-founders, one of the green guy was Eric Oberholtz, who created Tender Greens restaurants chain. He only hired from the inner city.
Yeah.
And and then he started training kids in food development and entrepreneurship, and basically saying, I'm going to bring you in, and by the end of the day, you're going to learn how to run my company, and then you can go off and run your own companies.
Exactly, and that's the goal. That is the goal right there, because the more, again, these are my beliefs. I feel pretty strongly about them. But as I said, I love capitalism, I love democracy, and I love being black. The more diverse America that we have, whether it be social or business, the better America.
Amen.
Because we all get to see the world from a different view. So that means you've got different points of view.
Right. But what's really needed in America, especially now, is the mindset of acceptance rather than me against you.
Correct.
I have to
Agree.
be one up, so I don't feel one down, which is what hierarchical culture trains the mindset in.
Yeah.
Am I good enough? Am I one up, one down? Why is the white population, the working class white population, so like blanching
arms.
at affirmative action, right?
Because they're scared they're
Because
going to lose something.
they feel they're going to lose something rather than, hey, here's my brothers and sisters, what can we co-create together,
Yeah.
right? And they're not in that mindset. They're in the historic mindset that's easily manipulated, that's fear-based, and it's a training that they're in that mindset. So their lives are limited by their mindset.
Yes.
The kids who go through these programs are not going to recreate that world. You can see when Black Lives Matter happened, 70% of the kids on the street were white. 70% of the kids really marching were white.
Yes.
Saying, I grew up in a school with him. We learned stuff together. I don't feel a difference between he and I, except he's got better suntan than me or something. I don't see that difference because I don't relate on that level. We relate on healthy levels together. So you're attacking him is like telling me it is attacking me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why should he be more exposed going out in front of a cop than me, right?
Yeah. I like it. So obviously we know what's going on, what's ongoing. What are the next things that Equip Our Kids are looking to do? What's next for Equip Our Kids? And
so I kind of ran it out. I mean, we're the parent stuff, which we're good at, we know we're good at. Now we're going to the streaming service for them. The students have never been really involved. The students have even had social emotional learning, have never really been in the movement to promote it. So now we're getting our advisory teen advisory board, a young advisory board, to teach us how to talk to the other kids. We just had a meeting this morning, and we came up with a bunch of new ideas to get kids involved. So we're promoting that, and we're promoting the streaming service that. We always look for what forces in the community. We're constantly working to develop grassroots organizations. But what forces in the community could most be beneficial? So we had this fellow who was a former police officer, became an educator, draw us up a map about how to talk to the law enforcement issue.
yeah.
So now we're going to go out. We're going to we got to finish the marketing materials on it. Then we're going to team up to go out to get law enforcement leaders to support social emotional learning, because we need kids who are coming out of school and not criminalized already, or not doing drugs or selling drugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of our next ventures. There's others. I think we're maybe running out of time. So
No, we're not running out of time. We're good to go. Yeah, the biggest thing that we want to do is make sure that people know where they can find you, know that they can find Equip Our Kids, and how they can learn more. That's it.
Okay, so best ways to learn more is just go to our website.
Go to Equip Our Kids.
The starting point is the homepage, equipourkids.org, and there's 4 videos there that'll give you what the kind of learning is, what some of the kids talking about that learning, why businesses should be behind this, and some of the stuff, how it's taught, video on how it's taught in the schools. And some of the footage is from that South Central school I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Where you hear kids talking about the turnaround that happened in their schools. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And then from there you can jump around to all the other stuff we have on the page. And if you fall in love with it, you can find a role as a volunteer with us. You can make a donation of any size. It's easy. We're a nonprofit. We do everything we do for the community, including all the media we make for the grassroots organizations, we do free. And we've made lots of media, videos and marketing materials for the many organizations out there that we provide services too.
I love it.
So
Well, Jay, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking the time out of your
love
busy
the
schedule.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes,
just
yes.
hang out with you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll look for doing this again next week.
Okay.
Thank you.